and welcome to another episode of the Harvest Season. My name is Cody.
And my name is Jonnie.
And we're here today to talk about cottagecore games. Woo! Oh, that was a good woo. That was a simultaneous woo. As always, transcripts are available in the show notes and on the website. And today we're talking about marriage candidates again.
Woo! Apparently it's marriage month here at the Harvest Season.
I guess it is. So the idea was that we did, not we, but Al and Kev did an episode recently talking about marriage candidates. And midway through the episode, they were like, we're only mentioning female marriage candidates. We should get someone who might choose a guy. And then also on top of that, it was also, or someone who can talk about why, like, marriage candidates at all. Like, why do marriage candidate? So this is going to be more of like the philosophy episode about marriage candidacy in games. Plus like who we would choose or why we choose what we choose, blah, 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 blah. So that's going to be the main topic. We do have a small bit of news. But before that, Jonnie, what have you been up to?
What have I been up to? So if you're on the internet, you might get an advertisement for this game called AFK Journey. It's a terrible gacha game. I'm playing it. No further comments.
That's all you're doing?
Game-wise, yeah, that's about all I'm doing at the moment. It's a mobile game. It's kind of mindless. Okay. It's a thing you can do in the background. I wish I had time this past week to play other things, but I have not. So I've let a gacha game rot my brain.
Prioritized brain rot.
Yeah. I don't feel good about it. I don't recommend other people play it. It's a mobile gacha game, right? Like, it exists to try and take your money. That's its whole reason for being. The problem is now we're in that phase where, like, even the games that are designed to take your money are actually, like, pretty okay games, which is concerning because they're no longer just terrible. Like, this is actually a pretty good game. It's just not one that I would ever recommend another human being play.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have negative money right now, so yeah, I wouldn't I don't need any gacha games. Yeah, that's all you're playing.
That's literally all I'm playing. What have you been up to, Cody?
So I have, again, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, that Tetris is dead. Tetris is dead to me.
Woo.
So I'm not, bye Tetris. As in, goodbye Tetris, do not consume the Tetris media. So what I have been playing is, so my grandma got me on this game called Cross Stitch World. I think I've mentioned it on the pod before. It's actually, just like kind of like a color by number game. It can be on your phone, it can be on an iPad, it can be on whatever you want it to be. It's basically like a Facebook affiliated game. And I actually have been playing a decent amount of that because it helps me focus. So it's one of my, like, ADHD tactics, I guess, for staying in the moment during, like, a Zoom meeting, or, want to brain rot and watch a new movie, but I don't want to get distracted by anything in the new movie. So I want to, like, really, it's funny because it looks like I'm not paying attention to things, but I am. Like, it helps me to pay attention because it turns off the part of my brain that tries to wander. So I've been playing that. And then I've also been playing a lot of Disney Dreamlight Valley. So I've, like, jumped back into it. I hit credits, and now I'm trying to 10, level 10, like, max out all of my people. I now have every character except for Prince Eric, who I'm pretty sure I'm going to get at the end of one of the other characters' lines, like one of their quest lines. I'm trying to get all of the recipes, and trying to get a bunch of the achievements. And I am seriously considering buying Rift in Time. I think it's like $25.
And what do you get out of Rift in Time?
So Rift in Time has kind of like 3 acts to it. So think of like Scarlet and Violet, where you buy the DLC and then you have like 2 phases of the DLC. It's the same. So you get 3 different phases of this paid content, and it adds a new tool. It adds like new things that you can do, new islands that you go to. It adds Gaston and Eve, and I believe another character. Oh, probably it says a mystery character or whatever, but I'm pretty sure it's an Atlantean, so I think it's like Milo Thatch or whatever. I did also, after I mentioned this on the last podcast, I went, if you like go in Disney Dreamlight Valley, if you go into like furniture, or if you're trying to like sort something by either like, is it cool? Is it cute? Is it from this realm? Is it from that realm? It shows you like all of the realms that are going to come. It has like a super long list. It includes things like Hocus Pocus, or Atlantis is on there. Hilariously, the Beauty and the Beast from 2017 is separate from the 1997 one or whatever it is. So they have a lot of content coming in that game. And I'm also, I don't know, it's something I'm just like, I do every day. I log on the characters I don't have to level 10. I see what their favorite gifts are for the day, and I get all of them, and I've paid for I've upgraded everything, so money is useless to me now, but I still am getting a lot of it.
Do you think, because they're adding a lot of content to the game, and obviously I've done a couple of episodes on Disney Dreamlight Valley, and I also hit credits and kind of bounced off when I was trying to level 10 all of the characters, because I kind of felt like while they were adding content in terms of new characters, there wasn't much being added that made the game more interesting, right? Like a lot of the quests were just, this character wants you to go and collect 10 Who's a Whatsits and build a thing, and that's, like it was just a loop that kind of I got bored of eventually. Are they making it more, is there more diversity of gameplay, or is it just more characters, but the core gameplay loop is still very much the same?
So I think it's definitely that the gameplay loop is the same. Like, once you've maxed out a character and completed all of their storyline or whatever, they just don't have any more quests for you. And you won't get the random quests where they're like, I need you to go get 10 Who's a Whatsits. They just won't have those anymore. They do have them for seasonal things. So there was just an Easter event, and Wally wanted me to help him make a flower bouquet, but it was it was a daily thing. Like, he wanted me to do it every day, and you got these like eggs from it, like Easter eggs, and there's really no purpose for them. So I didn't really I don't know, there wasn't really a drive for me to do that for very long. They do also have, they just had an event that was called, I think, the Lovely Monsters, and it was a Monsters Incorporated moon. I don't know what exactly they're called, but it was one of the ones that you can use the in-game currency to pay for things and get different items from Monsters Incorporated. I have a ton of the in-game currency. You actually get a decent amount just from playing. I have not had to pay for anything or put any money into this game at all. So I definitely like that. But if one of those events aren't going on, I don't, once you've maxed everyone, and if you don't give a crap about the achievements, I don't really know what you would come back for.
Okay, yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, because I think that game has a lot of potential, and it's still really fun, right? I would still highly recommend people go in and to play it. But as sort of that live service, daily play in game, I just wish there was a little bit more variety in terms of what you could do day to day. Yeah.
Once you've maxed out a character, there's really all of the characters. There's not as much of a reason. So, and that's my plan, is like max out all the characters, go through all the story stuff, get the achievements that I care about, and then probably just put it down until more content comes. They did say, later in the news, there will be we'll talk about something. We'll hear about something in the news. I guess we can just get to the news to talk more about DDV. But the other thing is that I've been doing is fox crafting. The Fox's Tale is almost complete, and writing a manuscript and submitting manuscripts. Woo!
Woo!
PhD. And I have field season starting next week. Woo! Okay. I was going to say, speaking of next week, I was going to try and do a transition, but it's actually a couple weeks away. Fabledom, jumping into the news, Fabledom is coming out of early access, so it's coming into 1.0 on the 13th of May. This is the cottagecore-esque city builder, and there's, for some reason, a flying pig that's flying all over the screen in the trailer. I don't know if you choose to farm pigs or something. I haven't played it clearly because it's in early access, but have you looked at this game at all?
I've talked about it on a few episodes as it's been sort of getting ready. Fabledom, like city builders probably aren't super my thing. I think if they were going to be a thing, this is one that would be quite interesting to me. I just like the sort of more laid back vibes. So yeah, if you like the concept of a city builder, I think this is definitely worth checking out. Like, it looks good. Do we know how much it's going to be?
If I remember correctly, I think it's $21. They just increased they said that they had increased the price. It originally was a lower price, but then after all the content, or after all the like changes that they made to it and stuff, they increased the price up by $5.
I mean, it looks very pretty, right? Like, it's great art style.
It's definitely worth $21. So yeah. For people who have
actually, it's one of those things, right? Where I'm like, it's not my vibe, but at the price point, I'm like, maybe I will buy it and just give it a go.
There you go.
So who knows? Watch this space.
Yeah. Future episode, perhaps. We're not promising anything. Apico, everyone's favorite beekeeping simulation game, but also butterfly and solitary bee conservation game, is about to have a 4.0. So this is the third free content update, and Al, the developer, has said that it is the final free content update. But Al has a comment saying, yeah, you know who else has said that multiple times? Concerned Ape. So I think he's pointing at the fact that, final version, whatever. There might be more updates in the future, but is what Al is trying to say. But it sounds like L is saying that this is it. And it adds a bunch of cute little mechanics. So it adds automation. Automation. So things like hoppers and sprinklers. And it looked on the screen, it looked pretty cool, like how there was a beehive and then there was just like a frame full of honey just like hopping over to get the honey extracted, and then the honey extracted comb was like hopped to something else, and so it looks like you could really do some crazy things with automation here. Different honey core mechanics, so that's the kind of like an ore in the world. It says cute pets, but there's no images of the pets, so we don't know what pets are going to come out. There is like in the trailer a little bee or a butterfly following you, which is pretty cute. Did you watch the trailer at all, John?
I did not.
Okay.
Like, for me, Apico it's too much crafting. So I like my interpretation of this update is, if you are really into Apico, I think all of this stuff sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But if you're not into Apico, I don't know that this will change that significantly.
I mean, the automation definitely might bring in some people because one of the biggest complaints of people is that this is basically like menu management simulator, because there's a lot of menus that you can pull up. There's a lot of different pieces, which as a scientist is really cool, because that's true of beekeeping. Like when you do beekeeping, like you take the frame to the uncapping, and then after you've uncapped it, then you move it to the extractor, and you have to do all this stuff, and then you have to clean it, and then you have to, so like it makes sense to me, and for some people it's gonna scratch that itch, but not for everyone, for sure. And so yeah, I get that. Cute pets, there's also seasonal events. So it's the two that are mentioned, which are probably the two that there are Hive Miss and Halloween. Love it. Love the puns. So they'll trigger in real life. Like Hive Miss will be all the month of December, and Halloween will be, I think it's like October 27th to November 7th or something like that. So if you're playing during those times, they'll trigger, but you can also just toggle it on or off through the accessibility menu. A bunch of new decorations, new music, new bees, new butts, butts being butterflies. Yeah, big ol' content. I tried to read through the patch notes and it was long. So, very interesting. Speaking of patch notes that are super long, Stardew Valley 1.6.4 is out now, because there's never enough, apparently, is what Concerned Ape says. There's new alternate mine and volcano layouts. So it said like when you reach the base of the mine, there's like a new layout down there or something.
So once you reach the base of the mine, I think it unlocks these new mine layouts to appear.
Okay.
That was my interpretation.
Interesting. I don't understand what that means. Like,
so like,
then if you go back to 25, it might look different?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. We also have Fish Frenzies, which I was not sure what that meant, so I pulled a quote. Quote, Fish Frenzies in Stardew Valley are a new random event where several of the same fish spawn all at once. Which is pretty interesting. And Kat in the Slack, calling you out, Kat, just said as of like I guess this was a lot earlier, but I just saw it. Quote, I got a Fish Frenzy. It was neat. I don't know if I'd go out of my way for it a lot, though, but cool for early game. Very cool. If you're wanting a certain fish, or if there's a certain fish that sells a lot of money, that might be a good thing to do. And if you have been playing and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't want any more moss. I don't want moss on my trees anymore. Concerned Ape heard you, and you can now put vinegar on your trees, and that will make no more moss on your trees. Have you been playing 1.6?
Yeah, so Elle and I did the initial episode on 1.6. Mm-hmm. Like I think it added a bunch of cool stuff. Like I know that there's a lot in this 1.6 update, but it's all to me in the sort of like very small, like not even quality of life. It's almost just like a random brain dump of stuff that Concerned Ape needed to get out of their brain into the game. Okay. But none of it I really look at and go like, oh, this is gonna pull me back in. It's mm-hmm. Like it's all stuff, and there's a lot of the stuff. But I don't know there's anything super exciting in here.
Okay. I'm just so far out of Stardew Valley that I'm kind of. I think Al mentioned this in that episode. He's like, "What is a 1.6 thing versus a 1.5 thing?" Like, yeah. If I were to play now, I'd be like, "Wow, there's this new thing," and someone might be like, "Yeah, that was like a year ago." And I'd be like, oh, I burnt myself out on that game, and I need to it's in timeout. Speaking of being in timeout, Fae Farm, I think is in some people's times out, right? You're one of the people who did Fae Farm, or you liked it?
I like mechanically, I like what Fae Farm is trying to do, but the surrounding narrative aspect of the game is severely lacking.
So it's in timeout. But yes. It is also now available in Japan, South Korea, and Hong Kong. Very interesting that it's Hong Kong specific. Not going to get into politics. So you can check out the free demo if you are in any of those places and you're like not entirely sure if you want to play the game or not, you can check out the free demo on Steam or Nintendo Switch. Definitely on Nintendo Switch, because I'm seeing it on that in the tweet. But you can check out the free demo, and if you end up really liking it, you can port that demo save to your real save. So, which I love when places do this, because I hate playing all the intro stuff and then having to play the intro stuff again. Big sad when you have to do that. Another game getting ported to new things or just increasing its what platforms it's on is Lonesome Village. It is now available on iOS and Android. It looks real cute, but I can't do it on mobile.
I like Lonesome Village. I actually think a port to mobile makes a lot of sense for what that game's trying to do. Like, there was some controller weirdness with it that I think a mobile interaction would actually lend itself better to. So I think it's a good port for this sort of game, and it's mostly sort of puzzle based. So I can see that being pretty good. Yeah,
and it is $5.99. I just checked on iOS. Decent price. We've made it back to Disney Dreamlight Valley. Here we are. Adding to what you were talking about character needing more like reasons to play on a daily or whatever, villagers are going to start sending you things in the mail. A lot of people in the comments on Twitter, because it's posted on Twitter, a lot of people said like, oh my gosh, this is a lot like if it is a lot like Animal Crossing, that'll be really cute. So, and I would love to see what Wally would send you, and like if there's a letter with it and Wally just like wrote his name a million times, or like, you know, the because he doesn't say real words. Like if the letter had just like Wally speak, and then it's just like a plant or something. I don't know what he would give you.
Yeah, that would be great. I am interested in exclusively receiving. I want to receive gifts from Wally and from Ariel. I think they're the only two.
Which is funny because they interact at one point. Because they both.
Yeah, their interaction's one of my favorite things in the game.
Yeah, they both get so excited because they both love collecting human objects. Super cute. I was trying to think of other characters I might want to get mail from, and honestly, a lot of the like Mickey Mouse and Friend characters, I just want them to go away.
Yep.
I would love to receive mail from them if I can banish them from the valley, and then I only receive mail from them, and that's it. Because I don't care about Mickey or Minnie or Donald or Goofy, and I only care about.
I am right there with you.
Yeah. So they're going to start sending you mail in update 10, which is coming, quote unquote, spring. Spring is here. Spring is almost gone. So wear it at. Very interesting, very exciting. I'm excited to see how that game changes, because it's already changed so much. And there's so much possibility in it. So excited to continue to see what happens there. And then we do have one new game that we're talking about today, called Collector's Cove. So this game is currently has a Steam page, and on the Steam page it says, quote, "Set sail on a cozy farming adventure aboard your boat in Collector's Cove. Explore diverse climate zones with your animal companion and discover a multitude of rare crops and fish. Enjoy cozy solitude while completing your collector's compendium and rise to the rank of a named collector." What'd you think of this trailer, Jonnie?
I like the idea of traveling around on a giant Lapras. That to me is cool. This trailer showed like, yeah, there's cozy elements to the game. I need to see more about like what the angle is. Like, I like the idea of collecting. But to me, this game will my interest in it will be entirely dependent on seeing more of the actual gameplay, and the trailer's relatively light on that, which is fine, right? It's the announcement trailer. It has me interested, but not like I just want to see more.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel too. Like, you're basically, so it says, just from like I highly recommend people go watch the trailer, because just from reading that blurb, it doesn't convey the fact that your boat is basically either is the back of a Lapras or is on the back of a Lapras. It doesn't seem like you are steering the boat so much as you are living on the back of and we're saying Lapras. It's clearly not Lapras because this is not a Pokemon game, but it's a Lapras. It looks exactly like a Lapras. And I need more information about this thing. They barely mention it, barely comment about it. I wasn't sold on the trailer until you fish something up and then you throw it to your animal companion and it like eats it and catches it and eats it. And I was like, that is adorable, actually. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be waiting for more information about this game, and we'll see what happens. I'm not sold. So that is the end of the news. So on to the main topic, which is. So Al wrote favorite marriage candidates, but before we get to who we want as a marriage candidate or whatever, and some of the games that we've played, we have some discussion to have.
Oh yeah.
So Al has slotted, I made some of these other sections, but Al specifically put section for Jonnie to complain about marriage candidates. So Jonnie, here's your floor. Take it away.
My problem with marriage candidates, right, and like it's been like I like doing these sorts of episodes because it actually makes me think more about like why do I feel the way that I feel, and in large part, like I think I talked about this when we did fishing month, and apparently we just do months based on mechanics that I actively dislike. But for me, a lot of it is like the cottagecore genre suffers from, I think, a lot of developers copy and pasting the mechanics because there is now this perception that a cottagecore game has to have fishing and has to have marriage candidates and it has to have, growing crops and all of these sorts of things that they absolutely do not have to have, but they copy them because they think that's the standard. And there's no intentionality behind why it exists in the game. And so we now live in a state where marriage candidates or romance or whatever version you want to put exists in these games where it really serves no purpose, right? And for me, I think that the biggest example of this at the moment is Coral Island. You get married in that game and your partner stands in the house and does nothing. Like, getting married actively makes the character worse, which to me is just so much of a signal that the people making that game had no real concept behind why marriage is supposed to exist. And like Stardew does it well, not amazingly, but pretty good, right? The whole concept of that game is you are frustrated with your corporate life, you move to a small town, you integrate yourself into a community, which ultimately ends in you marrying one of the people that's part of that community. They move in with you, they help out around the farm, the end, right? Is it the best story? No. Is it a story that makes sense in the context of the game? Absolutely. But so many of these games now, it's like, hey, we've got marriage candidates. They exist. You should marry one of them. And they do literally nothing, right? Fae Farm, which we talked about earlier. Horrendous dating system. It just shouldn't be in that game. That game is about, like, dealing with fairies and magical lands. Like, I don't need to date anyone in that game for that story to be told. And then the fact that the marriage candidates just have, like, bland, generic dialogue, zero personality, it's just not something that needs to exist. And so I really have come to dislike it in most games because it's not done with any intentionality. And I think with this feature in particular, it's very off-putting to a lot of people, right? A lot of people, like, dating sims as a game genre are not something that a lot of people want to play. And I know a couple of people that avoided playing Stardew Valley for a long time because they thought it was a dating simulator, right?
Oh, no.
And they did not want to play a game, like they didn't want to have to do that. And the perception is that it was something that had to be done. And, eventually they tried it and they're like, oh, I didn't realize that you could, despite, being told like that it wasn't really a part of the game. They're like, oh, I didn't realize that you could literally ignore it and it wouldn't really lock anything out for you, or it doesn't lock anything important out for you. So I just kind of wish that it was something that was approached with a lot more thoughtfulness behind it, other than just it's now an industry standard.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that I only my major dislike of the like whether a game has one or not is if you get something from the marriage system that you wouldn't otherwise get. So like, I think, isn't it in Stardew that if you don't complete after like a certain time, if you haven't gotten married, you're not going to be able to like reach a certain rank or whatever. Am I remembering that?
I think getting married does count towards your grandfather's rating, but I don't believe there's a time for it. So it might be that if you want to do it by the first time, Grandpa gives you his rating. I guess technically yes, but there's no real time lockout on that.
Okay, but still, I mean, I think that's true of real life as well. Which is like not what I want in my games, that I'm gonna disappoint someone if I don't do XYZ. Like if I don't have kids, if I don't have a marriage partner, like that a family member is gonna be disappointed. It's less about like you being happy, and it's more about like fitting the mold of society, and what people think that you should be doing. And I think like a lot of the time it perpetuates that, and people say like, oh, well, what marriage candidate did you pick? Because you have to pick one, right? And it's like, I have some big ADHD, like, I don't remember what it's called, but like when people tell me to do something, I'm like, well, now I'm not going to do it. It can't make me do anything. But like, I see it as a bonus, but not like it's like an extra feature that you can do, but it's when you feel like you have to, or that's when I'm like, it misses me a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a really great example of that, right? Which is the in Stardew, the summer festival, the spring dance, right? I think is that what it's called? The flower dance.
Yeah.
And the fact that that's like the first one, and I get why, right? Like you're new to the town, so you don't have a partner to dance with, but like, it's not the greatest feeling in the world when it's like, yeah, no one here really likes you enough to like, dance with you at this very important town event, right? Like, there's a little bit of like a,
Yeah.
because it does sort of put that like, by the time it rolls around next year, you don't want to have that feel bad moment where no one wants to dance with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not great. So I guess like the main takeaway from that would be, from that whole like part of the conversation, is it's not necessary in games, and even if it is in a game, it shouldn't be necessary for you to do. Or I guess I guess it's not, but I don't like. And I thought about this like the other day, because I was like, what other games have I like married people in? And legit, like the only game I can think of is The Sims. When I would literally make me and whatever person I was interested in at the time, I would make us sim characters, and then I would get us married within like 5 minutes of playing the game, because like I know how to like talk so that you have enough friendship, so that you can flirt, so that you can kiss, so that you can do other things, so that you can get married. And it just like, I just get it out of the way. I'm like, I don't care about any of this, just get it out of the way. It's just not it's not something that everyone is interested in. So I'm rambling.
Yeah, but you're right. It's not something that everyone is interested in, and I think this would be a good time to talk about maybe one of the big reasons that everyone is not interested in it is because there's maybe not a huge diversity in
Yeah.
in marriage candidates in games.
Yeah, and that was my next point, is that all marriage candidates in games, for the most part, but some newer games are getting away from it, and I am happy about it. But they're usually young, they're usually attractive, they've usually never had a relationship, so that they'll say like, "Oh, you're my first girlfriend," or, "Oh, you know, this is all new for me," or whatever. Like it doesn't seem like a lot of them have history. Like sometimes you'll have characters, like I think we were talking about, was it Clint and Emily? Who's the other character that Clint likes?
Yeah, Emily. Yeah.
How like, you know that he has a crush on her, and so you know that like there is the potential there, but that they aren't dating. They don't have history. They're just friends, and one of them is interested but won't speak up. So
We can say it. Clint's a friggin' loser. Clint sucks.
Don't be a Clint. I mean, and I get like being cautious, but you have to shoot your shot. Just get it out there. Yeah. I remember listening to that episode and being like, oh wow, Clint actually reminds me a lot of one of my exes who didn't make a move. And it sucked. Don't do that. Don't do it. Especially, doesn't he say like, I guess you won, like if you start dating her?
That's
disgusting.
like a lot of his initial traits are like understandable, right? Like it's fine to have anxiety or fear or uncertainty about it, but like the treating it like it's a competition with a prize is gross and pathetic.
Gross. Yeah. So, but they're all, I mean, I'm glad that there are flawed characters, but like they're just all kind of a carbon copy. It's like, how would a young hot jock look like? What would a young hot computer nerd look like? What would a young, like, insert career here, and then what would they look like? You know, maybe this one would have a fun hair color. Maybe let's give this one heterochromia for giggles. Like, it just, there's, like you were saying, intention. There needs to be intention behind some of these characters and their backstories. Which, as I've said, some games are getting good at. But for a long time, like, it just seemed like it was based on like who you'd think is hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess before we move on to like why people choose marriage candidates, which is like the next step of that, did you have anything to say about like the lack of diversity in marriage candidates or anything specific with that?
Yeah, I think there's a few things, and like I totally support the like, yeah, everyone is like too young and too attractive, which is kind of like already like a bit odd, right? Because these are video game characters; they're not real people. They're often like pixel art. So doing diversity should be way easier.
Mm-hmm.
But also like gamers are getting older, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people's parents have at this point tried Stardew Valley, right?
Mm-hmm.
Divorce is surprisingly common,
Mm-hmm.
right? Why are there no older characters that can, you know, be marriage candidates? Like, it's just a lot of, you know, yeah, like you said, it's kind of like, as you were talking, I was like, it kind of reminds me of like really old pro wrestling, right? Where everyone's gimmick was like, you are a wrestler and a dentist, or a wrestler and a garbage man. And it's just like, that feels like the era we're in for marriage candidates. It's like, you are a nurse and also young and hot and single.
Yeah.
And all of the old gross people, they're all married, so don't worry about them.
Yeah. Or they're not available.
Yes.
Like, and someone mentioned to me Harvey. So there's probably a bunch of people yelling that Harvey is probably not your traditionally attractive human or whatever. But I'm going to be honest, I didn't realize for a very long time that he was a marriage candidate. Because again, they go with the olds or sorry, the youngs. And so if there's anyone who looks like they might be a little bit older or someone who is more like progressed into their life, because he's like the whole doctor thing, like I do not even, I'm like, oh, that's not one of them because it's not the young one. And I will say Stardew Valley is not the one that like started this. I'm actually not entirely sure who started it, but I do remember in A Wonderful Life, which I did play, and I also went for Celia like Kev did. They were all just the young women in the town. It's like, do you want the one that helps run the farm, the one that helps run the tavern, or the rich one that is in the house? And then there was another one that I don't even remember. But
yeah, and this actually just reminded me of another frustration that I have around marriage candidates in game, and it's actually just like the process of going through it, right? Because it's all primarily driven off of giving people gifts.
Yeah.
Which is like super lame and super uninspired, and kind of super reductive about how, you know, relationships work. You know, like whether they're like, you know, romantic or just friendship based, how they work in general. I think there needs to be more weighting in these systems towards interacting with the characters in any form, right? Because occasionally you get, like in some games, you'll get a small boost for just talking to them from a friendship point perspective. But why can't it be like, if I go to, you know, Clint's shop every day and have him crack open geodes, I don't know, I feel like our relationship would improve. I have a relationship with the people at my local coffee store because I go there every day. I see them every day. And it's not like, you know, we're not probably above 2 hearts, but, you know, we have a rapport, right? So I kind of wish that there was more diversity in not just the candidates themselves, but also what it was required to form bonds with these people, you know. Even with we'll stick with Stardew because it's like no one, right? Like a character like Leah or Elliot, they're very artistic driven characters. Maybe you have to have lots of art in your house for them to be more interested in you, right? Like whatever those things are that actually are like, hey, there is, I don't know, something common and that can make you play the game in an actual different way.
I really like that idea because it is one-sided. It's like, here are the people you get to pick from, and like it doesn't matter if you're like their type or you are someone that they would be interested in. Like, what if, you know, Clint became more interested in you because you clearly mined a lot, and he was like, wow, you really like mining, don't you? Or like someone, you'd fish a lot and you'd go and talk to someone and they'd be like, wow, you smell like fish. I actually don't like fishing. And so like you almost have to like change, well, like I guess like change how you play the game to be attractive to those people.
Yeah.
That would be really interesting. Kind of reminds me of, there's this show. Do you watch Love is Blind?
I do not.
In the first episode of the most recent season, in the American one, there's a person who asks, he has got like a piece of paper and he asks a question of a woman, and she says, well, what do you think? Like, what's your answer? And he was like, oh, I didn't realize this goes both ways. He's like, I honestly haven't even thought about my answer. And it's like, are you kidding me right now?
Wow. That's amazing.
You thought you were just coming into these pods and talking to these people and that was it? Like, getting there and then you get to pick like that. You also need to, this is a two-way street, my guy. Yeah, no, I think like if it was like that, where, you know, how you play the game, what you do in the game, maybe decisions you make in the game, like if you go the Joja route, like someone is like automatically like, nope, not interested in you, that would be really interesting.
Yeah, agree. And if you do go the Joja route, all of a sudden Shane's like, yo, what up?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
me, Shane.
He notices you more. So I asked, this actually transitions really well into the next part that I wanted to talk about, which is why people choose the marriage candidates that they do. Like, what makes you choose whoever you chose, blah, 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 blah. And I asked this, I was researching for this podcast, like looking at different marriage candidates for different games and like trying to figure out which ones I thought were the most compelling. And I was in a room of other entomology graduate students, and someone like looked over at my screen and they were like, "What are you, Stardew Valley? Like, what are you doing?" And everyone was like, "Stardew Valley." And so I was like, "Hey guys, like, I actually have a question for you. Why do you choose the people that you choose?" And some of the answers that I got were things like if they have a compelling backstory or vibes. Like he just looks magical, talking about Elliot. Perfect gentleman. Seems nice. Someone said that they've never chosen anyone. They've played the game for 5 years and they have just never done the marriage. And actually multiple people were like, "I've just not done it. Not interested," which was really interesting to me that there are, I always, from playing the game and talking to people, I always feel like a lot of other, like the majority of people are choosing people and doing the whole marriage route. But it's from that discussion with 20 entomology students, I was surprised. So yeah, I guess like Jonnie, do you know, before I like kind of talk about why I think people choose marriage candidates, do you have any like why would you go after, now that we've gone through, okay, marriage candidacy exists, okay, they're all young and hot, they shouldn't be, but like past all of that and assuming that all of that is true and knowing all of that is true, like how do you choose someone in these games?
So I feel like the way I choose someone in this game is based off of like, if someone who knows me walked in and saw me playing and would be like, "Oh, you chose that character," I want them to say, "That makes sense." Right? Like, so it's more about how I think other people see me, and kind of just picking someone that's like, "Yeah, that makes sense. Like, I could see that you would pick that," right? So like for Stardew, like most people, when I have this conversation, they're like, "You obviously picked Leah," and I'm like, "Yes, you are correct." Like, right?
So is that because she aligns with who you would go for in the real?
I think it aligns with people's perception of who I would go for in the real. Which there's definite overlap, right? Like of my preference, but it's the reductive sort of version, right? So like, and part of it's like, I'm not interested in using a game like this for me personally to explore why I may or may not be interested in certain types, right, of people. Like that's, for me, that's something that I do in the real world. So it's kind of like a little bit of like path of least resistance, Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what it seems to boil down to for like people that I talk to, and also just thinking about it and hearing people talk about it, is it's either people are either trying, like if they are choosing a marriage candidate, they're not being that group of, well, I don't want to even choose a marriage candidate. They usually either are going for someone that they would go for in the real, someone who might be similar to their partner if they have one. I know, Al had talked about how he has Rona, like he was already married to Rona when he started playing the game. I actually don't remember if he talked about if Haley is similar to Rona or the other person that Emily. I don't remember if either of those are similar to Rona. But I found that, like, for me, for some games, like, I go for someone and then I realize, oh my gosh, this is my partner, actually. Like, now that I'm starting to get to know this person more, like, I gravitated towards them. But, and then I've also had it be like, oh, this is, like, the classic. Again, like you're saying, like, people would be like, this is who you went for, right? And I was like, yes, you're right. There are people, I mean, there's definitely people, because this is an escapism game, who might go for something completely wild. Or fantastical, like go for the person that they wouldn't normally go for. Maybe not to see how it would work out in real, because this is not real life. But it might, for me at least, it did make me look inward and be like, dear God, why am I making the choices that I'm making? And I need to reevaluate myself. But
that's just all choices in your life, right?
Huh?
That's just all choices. You're like, why? Why am I making them?
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, I guess
just getting the deep cuts in.
Well, and so here I will tell the anecdote of, so as similar to you, as I was researching this, I realized I've been doing this subconscious thing for a really long time that I didn't even realize I was doing, where I am kind of judging everyone based on the Stardew candidate that I chose and then didn't like in real life.
Amazing.
And why, like, thinking about why I chose them. So when I first played this game many moons ago, I was younger then. I went in Stardew for Sebastian. No, I didn't care a hoot about his story. I was just like, oh my gosh, there's an emo boy. I want to date the emo boy. Which was very much me in real life. Like, I always went for the more alternative looking guys, the more, and I say guys, but I am pan, but I am too shy to go for women. And have not been single in a time where I would be dating a non-binary human, though I have crushes on a couple non-binary people. But I am happily in a relationship. But we're getting off track. So I went for Sebastian because I was like, oh my gosh, it's an emo boy. I can be with an emo boy. That's amazing. And then as you talk to him, like, he's really kind of dismissive, like very one-word answers to you in the beginning of your guys' conversations. And honestly, it rung true. I was like, I always in real, like in high school, I would go for like the alternative looking guys, and they would drip feed me like social interactions, and I would just take it and be like, he smiled at me when I gave him something. Oh my gosh. And it's like, has nothing to do with it. Like, doesn't mean he likes me, but I was just like, oh my gosh, this person that I want to be with, like, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, I had people who were genuinely good and decent humans who wanted to date me, and I was like, no, I must go for the alternative guy. And then I ended up, you know, as you progress in Sebastian's story, I guess spoilers for Sebastian's story, he ends up marrying you, or you end up marrying him, and I also, like, remember him being, like, really into the city and really into motorcycles, and I was like, well, I don't want to live in the city. And I don't like motorcycles. But this is the alternative guy. It's like, I wasn't into him, who he actually was. It's just into the fact that he was the alternative guy. And then you marry him. And I remember going home. First of all, it's like very similar where he's just in the house all day. Kind of like you were saying about Coral Island, which makes me very sad about Coral Island. And I came home and I got this text. And I went through all of his, like, dialogue to find this. And he said, I did some work on the laptop today. I was actually brainstorming some ideas for a game I want to make. With your farming income, I can afford to do what I want with my life. It's pretty amazing. Thank you. And I read this and I was like, this freeloading piece of poop. Like, are you serious? He's not doing anything? And I don't think he actually helps you on the farm at all. There are some things that he says to you that are really, like, encouraging, or he's like, you're doing so good, I love you, like, you're awesome, blah, blah, blah. But, like, he just becomes a bum. He just becomes a bum in your house. Which I guess is just what happens to all of these people. But I just thought it was Sebastian. So then I looked at it. I, like, looked internally in my brain, in my heart, and was like, that makes sense, actually. Like, it makes sense to me that people in real life that are drip feeding me attention, that I am fighting tooth and nail to get any scrap of attention from them, and then they finally deign to, like, be with me. Yeah, of course they're going to be bums. They're going to be, like, the kind of bum that just is like, you do everything, because I did everything in the relationship. And I was actually dating someone who I ended up marrying in real life. Yes, I'm divorced. I ended up marrying in real life a Sebastian, like 100%. And that was our plan, was that I was going to get a job in entomology, which does not pay 100%. And he was just going to stay at home and do nothing. And I was like, this is not what I want. And so I'm not with that person anymore. But, like, it really just, like, made me personally look and be like, I have just been going for this, like, for the, like, vision, like what I think I want or whatever, and not actually considering people for who they are. And I realized, like you're saying, like a lot of these things are shallow. Like they're not intentional. It's not deep. It's not like, which I get, like you can't do that you can't do it to the same level as like an in real life relationship. Right. But like, it's so shallow. And it sucks that one of my relationships was that shallow. And it like opened me up to the fact that I needed to like do better and choose better and not have the same choices in real life. But yeah, I guess like from then on, I've never, in all of these games, I don't do the marriage stuff. I can see like who I would go for, and I'd be like, yeah, if I was to choose a marriage candidate, that's probably who I'd go for. And I will like, you know, get the hard events with them and stuff like that. But I never actually like take the leap to like marrying them, because I just don't think there's a point. And it also feels just like a capture of them, I guess, or like an owning of them. Like now they're mine, but nothing comes of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's like having them is the point, not like you get to that point and then that opens up this new, new features or new possibilities or new stories.
Yeah. And that was my experience in real life too. When I ended up marrying the human, like I was like, oh, this is it. Like, which is not true of all marriages. I'm not saying don't ever get married in real life. I'm just saying like,
I will say, don't ever get married in real life.
I'm just saying, like, check why you go for the people that you go for, and if they're actually good for you, or if you actually like match with them. Because for a long time, like I was with that person for a very long time, and I realized after a while that my selection criteria were shallow as hell. And then
I'm just saying, why get married? Why get married? You could be in a long-term relationship. Government doesn't need to be involved in that. And then, you can leave and it's way easier. Just saying, don't get married. Marriage is a scam.
In the United States, you do get benefits of being married. There's tax benefits.
America is a scam. Step one, don't live in America. Step two, don't get married.
You're right. But yeah, I mean, so it was interesting to me that like, and now like in real life, I'll look at someone and I'll be like, that's a Sebastian. Like that person is not going to give you the time of day, is not going to put effort into you, is not like, if I have to chase after someone, it ain't happening. And I hilariously did be with someone after that I had to chase after, who was a Clint, very much a Clint. But then I was like, no, screw this. And then made it like waited for someone who is intentional and actively chose me. And that's my human now. So it was just so interesting to me. Like as I was going down this rabbit hole, I was like, that really was like doing that, playing the game really was like kind of a pivotal point for me of like, why am I like this? So
why are we like this? Shall we talk about our favorites, since I think that's the actual topic, but
yeah, sure. And I guess Al, you can cut all of that if you don't think it's relevant. Cody's...
No, Al cannot. I'm going to be mad if Al, like, he will not cut any of that, because that was all amazing.
Well, Cody's therapy time can be cut. The rest of it was interesting. Yeah, so I guess... So I have 4 different games that I have picked out as games that have marriage candidates in them that I have found compelling marriage candidates in. So I don't know what you have picked out.
I have 3.
Okay, so should I go through mine first?
Yeah.
Or we can go side by side. So I mean, the number 1 is Stardew, right?
Yes.
So in Stardew, the marriage candidates that are my quote unquote favorite, I have one of each assumed gender. So Elliot, I think that he was the person who I was like, oh, he's very mysterious, seems very gentlemanly. I agree with my friend who said that he's magical and a perfect gentleman. He feels that way. He feels very deep. He feels very seems like he's very contemplative. You know, he's a writer. Makes sense. And I will say a little bit of a spoiler here for his heart events, but early on in his heart events, he'll ask you what your favorite genre of book is. And then later in his heart events, you're attending like a signing or something of a book that he's written, and it's whatever your favorite genre is. So if you said that your favorite genre was mystery, he's written a mystery novel, sci-fi, it's a sci-fi novel, etc., etc. Which I just thought that was really cute. Like, just seems really like that's a thing I'd like in real life, honestly. And then the female character is Leia, clearly. She's just really caring. And she seems dimensional, so.
Yeah. Look, I also have Leia as, you know, as I think I mentioned before, as one of my Stardew. And then the other one I have on my list from a Stardew perspective is Emily, because I really wish I could swear, but like F. Clint, you know, I hate that dude. I like dating Emily to, you know, mess with Clint.
To save her
that dude sucks.
Clint.
Yeah. Not even to save her. Just to mess with him.
Oh,
like,
no.
It's almost, like, really disrespectful towards her as a character, because it's like, I don't even care about you, I just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. So, yeah, that's Stardew. I think, like, the other character, at least the other guy characters, are really two-dimensional. And one of my friends, I was, like, looking at them, and one of my friends said that her red flag is that she chose Shane.
Yeah, that is a pretty bad red flag.
And then later, like, someone wasn't in the room when we were talking about it, and then later someone else came in, and we were talking about who we chose in Stardew, and that person just turned to the other person and was like, "You chose Shane, didn't you?" She was like, "No." And that is a way to insult your friends. Tell them that you think that they would choose Shane. What is so that's Stardew. What's another game that you have?
So Coral Island. I really like Yuri as a character.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of it is just like we talked about the problem with everyone being like hot version of job, but
Mm-hmm.
like I think there are some jobs where that's more okay, and I think nurse or like, you know, being a medical professional is one of those. I think one of the things that I like about the marriage candidates in Coral Island in particular, this is kind of before you marry them, is they're not all presented as like super idealized versions. Like they don't all have, you know, really influential jobs, or like, you know, they're not all amazing, right? Like, because I was like, I was going to mention Yuri, and I was also going to mention Ava, who like just bakes at her dad's shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like and it's part of the shame, I think, of Coral Island is like the characters themselves are really compelling when you first meet them.
Yeah.
And it's just a shame that doesn't carry through into the marriage side. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
like especially like they seem to have really full lives, and then it's like when they marry you, then their life goes away. It's like no, like I still want you to do what you're doing. Like just because you marry, like you don't stop being an individual human. Like in these games, but also in real life.
Coral Island is like how marriage works in real life. You get married and your life is over. You become a soulless husk.
Yeah, you give up your whatever, which is not how it should be.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's probably a reason why I'm probably not going to do the marriage ceremony in Coral Island at all. Not that I was going to anyway, but I mean, yeah, my marriage candidates. I do think that Coral Island is the game that has the best diversity of marriage candidates and the best like options. Like there's people that are flawed. There are some non-binary people. There are, you know, very interesting, like there's an ex-military human, all of that kind of stuff. Very interesting. It's just that the system is not the system. The mechanic is still flawed, which sucks. So I actually I picked 3 people for Coral Island. So the first one is Scott. That is who I go for. It's who I automatically, I feel like in these games, the people that I'm usually interested in are the people who are either like quiet and contemplative or are super, super nerdy about the thing that they are into. And Scott is the nerd. Like, he is very into the museum. He's so excited. He gets really excited if you bring him things. I think, again, spoilers for his heart events. I read through the wiki and stuff. And one of his final heart events is he takes you through the museum, and he's put like rose petals like on a path, and he like takes you and tells you about how he remembers when you brought this trilobite in, and he remembers when you brought this other thing in, and how everything in the museum reminds him of you and how he really cares about you. I would die in a puddle if that happened to me in real life. Like, I'd be so happy. It's so cute. But again,
he's such a dork.
He's such a dork, and I love him. And then he's like kind of a buffer guy. Looks like he takes care of himself. And this person is very my current partner. Like, this is my current partner. This is that and as I was playing and I was talking to Scott more, I was like, this is him. This is like, oh, which was surprising, but also very awesome. Looking at some of the other characters, because I didn't really I really suck at trying to like meet everyone and do all figure out who everyone is in these games. So I just went through the wikis for it. I did find out that there is a divorcee in this game. Suki, who is the twin with the purple hair, she was married to someone who now lives off island, and has a child. Apparently one of the children, named like Valentina, I believe, is her child. And she's very into taking care of her child. She's very proud of her child. She's very protective of her child. But you can also marry her. Like, she is a marriage candidate. She also, in her picture, has visible stretch marks on her stomach because she's had a child. So 10 out of 10. I mean, she still looks young and hot. But I'm glad that they're having people that have these types of backstories and including these more, because that is much needed. The last person that I mentioned in Coral Island is Raj. Raj is the non-binary coffee human, is what I wrote. And 100%, I also wrote 100% my current vibe. I've worked in coffee shops for a long time. I still work in a coffee shop now, even during my PhD. A lot of the people that I work with are either non-binary or queer in some way. And they're just really, it's just my heart. I saw him and I saw he works in coffee, and I was like, I saw them and that they work in coffee, and I was like, yep, be still my heart. Like, I can relate to you. I can relate to that. It's the type of person that I would hang out with. If something were to happen, I could probably fall for them eventually. But it just seemed, I was like, I just gravitated and was like, there was enough of their backstory that I was like, yeah, I would hang out with and possibly be with that human, depending on if we meshed. Very, very cool. Very happy that there's that non-binary, representation in the game, even if I messed up pronouns.
I don't think they'll get to offend.
I was reading Scott's name when I was talking. What is another game that you have, Jonnie?
So last game I'll talk about is Cassette Beasts.
Oh.
And so all of the partners that you travel around with in that game are romanceable. And I really enjoyed the story with Kaylee in that game. This is also going to be like an annoying teaser for the Greenhouse episode that Kevin and I recorded on Cassette Beasts, and we go in depth, because the reason I like that romance is because it is directly tied into the story for the game, and it makes certain moments significantly more impactful and cohesive with the overall narrative that they're saying and that they're telling in the game. You don't get married, there's no marriage, it's just a romance option. But that was, to me, that is the best implementation of romance in a game that I was not expecting it, and then when I saw it I was like, oh really? And then by the end of the game I was like, nope, they knew what they were doing. That was fully intentional, and that was really well done. So Kaylee, but realistically, you could put in like any of the romanceable candidates from Cassette Beasts, and Cassette Beasts is just a magical game. There's a greenhouse coming out sometime soon, with Kevin and I talking for about an hour on why that game is incredible.
Yeah, I definitely need to. I think it's been on my list because you're super into it, and then I listened in the most recent episode, and Kev was talking about how he's back in it too, or into it as well. So, but I don't have much to say about Cassette Beasts other than that. So yeah, I have two more games that I have mentioned people. Roots of Pacha, it actually took a while for me to of looking through the marriage candidates to find one who I have a mild interest in. And even then it's like not necessarily as a marriage candidate, it's just as a person. It was a really cute backstory. So it's Took, and he is a very strong hunter. He's got this hard exterior. He becomes available when you unlock the savannah. All of his hard events show him raising a small boar. So he's like hunting in one of the earlier hard events, and he finds a very, very small boar, and he like shoos it away or like saves it so that it doesn't get hunted. And then later on, he just like is raising it. And then it shows like his family not understanding or accepting his boar pet, and then like him having a boar pet and stuff. And I just thought that was really like a cute idea. And endears me to him, but again, not enough to form a union with him in that game. And all the other characters are just your generic young, like we've talked about, like young, here's the young cloth maker, here's the young fire guy. I mean, some of them have backstories that are compelling that I learned about on the wiki, but it wasn't clear to me as I was playing the game. Again, I don't always pay attention to these things, so it 100% could just be me. But I remember talking to Kev about it and being like, the people who are compelling, and then I'm like, oh, I want to marry that person. They're either already married or they're old, and so they're not an option.
And as we established earlier, old people are gross, right? That was the
yeah,
takeaway.
old divorced people are disgusting, and probably vain, or used to choose partners based on vanity. Okay, so the last game, and I had to bring this one up because when I asked all of my friends about marriage candidates and how they go for marriage candidates in game, one of my friends said Skyrim. Yeah, there are marriage candidates in games, and this episode is just about marriage candidates, not necessarily farming game marriage candidates. So I'm going to talk about it. Did you play Skyrim, Jonnie?
I did.
Okay. Did you get married in Skyrim?
Yeah, because they turn into like a person that can like follow you around and store stuff, right? Like,
yeah, and they also
they just like a pack mule.
They can become a pack mule, and they can so that you can like tell them to follow you. But they can also become like a vendor, and then you can get like 100 coin from them every day or something like that. Very interesting. There are 30 female characters and 36 male characters that are marriageable in Skyrim. So there's 66 marriage candidates. One of my issues with the people who are marriage candidates are that so in the game, you basically like increase your reputation in a region enough to earn a house and earn the title of being a Thane. And when you become a Thane, you get someone who's known as your housecarl, and they will stay in your house, and you can ask them to follow you around, et cetera, and they'll fight with you, and they'll do all this stuff. Anyone who becomes your housecarl, you can then marry. Like, once they've become your housecarl, you can just be wearing an amulet of Mara and go up to them, and they're like, oh, you want to marry me? And you can be like, yeah. Which...
yeah, that's the main reason I employ people, is so I can try and marry them.
It's a job! It's disgusting. Okay, so I didn't go through all of 66 marriage candidates to see what their story was. Some of them are very bland. It's just like, here's a person in this part of the world, and they seemed like they would be good. But some of them have really cool stories. So one of them is a female character. She's an orc. Her name is Borgak the Steelheart. So apparently the orcs, marriage ceremonies or whatever is that a female becomes of age and then she gets basically like arranged marriaged off to a chieftain of another clan. And she, when you meet her, she's like, you know, I live here. I don't want to go to another clan. I feel like a cow, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like, correct. That's the bad feeling. So you can just pay her dowry. And if you do that, it frees her, but then you can also marry her. Like, I think it endears her to you. And so it's not like, oh, I'm going to pay your dowry. Now you marry me. It seems like it's like she's like so thankful that she's willing to like be with you then or whatever. I thought that was really interesting though, of like you can just free her and be like, go live your life. She's like, cool, thanks. Which is cool. The ones that if I were, well, other than Ayla the Huntress, who's in the Companions, who is a very awesome female character in the Companions. The Companions being the werewolf storyline in Whiterun. Farkas and Vilkas are twins in the Companions. Farkas is known as the strong one, and Vilkas is known as the brains one or the smart one. But in my opinion, they're both total sweethearts, and I would go for either of them. They're just they don't want to use their werewolf powers for evil. Very cute. And then this one I thought was hilarious because here we are complaining about you can't marry someone who's old, and Skyrim's got us. You can marry Octave San, who, quote, says, quote, I'm too old to work, but that don't make me too old to drink.
Right. Favorite marriage candidate we've talked about today.
So his daughter, Yvette, takes care of him. She's critical of his age. He drinks and gambles heavily due to his gambling.
Wait, how can you be critical of someone's age?
I don't know.
Don't be so old.
I don't know.
Be younger.
Maybe she's just like, you should be a better human, which is probably true. Yeah, so due to his gambling problems, he's accumulated a large sum of debt, and if you help pay off his debt, he offers to train you in two-handed weapon combat. Raises up your
So what I'm getting from Skyrim is you can exchange money for people.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah, so if you pay off all of his debt, he will also marry you. Could marry you if you're wearing the Amulet of Mara. But I was like, oh my gosh, you can literally marry this like old drunken gambler. It's just so stupid, but also awesome. Like that, I want to do that just to see what happens. And then they can follow you around. I think he's a gosh, what did they call it? He doesn't come back if he gets killed. Revive? I don't remember. But if he dies, he's just gone. Sucks. But yeah, I just had to mention Skyrim. I love Skyrim. I put so many hours into that game. So yeah, that was our thoughts on marriage candidates and the marriage candidacy as a mechanic. Did you have any final thoughts, Jonnie?
No.
No notes. Cool. Well, thank you. I hope listeners, you have thoughts about who in Skyrim you should woo, or has Stardew changed your in real dating life? Let us know. You can find me at Cody Mathis on Twitter /X, at Hiking Beagle on Instagram, or in the Slack, which is accessible through the Patreon. Patreon.com/THSpod, and that's also where they can find you, correct, Jonnie?
Correct.
The only place we can find him. He is nowhere else on the internet.
You can find me at my house.
I don't know.
Just saying. Like I am here most days.
I don't know where that is. You can find Al at the ScottBot on Mastodon.Scott and Twitter. You can find the podcast on Tumblr and Twitter at THSPod. If you have any feedbacks or links, you can give those at harvestseason.club. Tell us what your favorite marriage candidate is, or how you feel about their marriage system and how people might be able to fix it. Make it less shallow. Make it intentional. And at the website, you can, again, access the Patreon link, patreon.com/THSpod. Support our show. Keep us going. Maybe hear us talk about bugs. Hear about our new bug podcast that we're thinking about making. Yeah. So thanks, Johnny, for joining me today.
Thanks, Cody. This is a lot of fun. I always like talking about mechanics that I'm not a huge fan of. I always feel like I learned something about why I don't like them, and it's often that I don't like the mechanic. It's that I don't like the way it's implemented. So this was fun.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think that if we hadn't had this conversation, I wouldn't understand why I don't like this. And I mean, it doesn't really change the fact that I don't like it. And then I'm probably not going to do marriage in any of these games. But now we know a little bit more about ourselves. And hopefully, listener, you do too. So yeah, until next time, have a good harvest.
Have a good harvest.
The Harvest Season is created by Al McKinley, with support from our patrons, including our pro farmers, Kevin, Stuart, and Elisa. Our art is done by Micah the Brave, and our music is done by Nick Burgess. Feel free to visit our website, harvestseason.club, for show notes and links to things we discussed in this episode.
Yeah, I don't know. There's not really like a podcast that does that. The podcasts that I know of are like educational or informative, but not just like bug person gets to rant about whatever. Like, yeah. I don't know. If it's only like 20 minutes or so, I'm not going to say no. Right? I mean, right here, right now. And like, it could be literally like, what did people ask me about bugs this week? So like 2 weeks ago, it was, someone wants me to, one of my friends is a piano teacher, and she wants me to talk to her class. They're doing a piece called The Golden Butterfly. She wants me to talk to them about butterflies for like 5 minutes. So I'm going to zoom in and talk to this like piano class about butterflies.
Great. So I feel like that as like... That sounds like a good episode 1, right? Where it's like a little bit of the backstory of like, you know, how this request came about, you know, golden butterfly, and then basically just whatever you were going to say to that class, right? You could just do some of that. Okay.
Or like I was asked to go to a comedy club in New York City and talk about B-sex.
Wait, what?
I did that.
See, okay, this is 100%. This is 100% a show, right? Because like the Apico is a story for the show.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
There's also
we'll
like so this. my one now someone, and it could also just be like listeners write in with your questions and I can answer your question in like a 20-minute episode. So like Will from the PKMN cast just messaged me the other day, and he was like, explain how bumblebees breathe underwater. And then he linked
what?
this.
Okay, yeah. We are 100% doing this. This is amazing.
Okay. Okay. I mean, do we want it to be a part of this the greenhouse, or just like a whole other thing?
No, I think it needs to be its own show, right?
I'm willing to do it with you if you're willing to edit it.
Yeah, I'll look. We'll work on name. I'll do the editing, the logistics, all of that sort of stuff.
And then worst case scenario, we can just bring in another bug person.
Yeah, 100%.
So, okay. Well, we should probably do this.